Hello and welcome back to the Northern Lights Sportscast, episode 13. On this fine day, we are going to discuss the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Finals, how each team got there, and what we think is going to happen over the next couple of weeks here. We're going to first dive into the NBA Finals. We discovered the last team just a couple of days ago as of this filming. We discovered that the 8th-seeded Miami Heat will join the Denver Nuggets in this year's NBA Finals. I think I'm going to let Cody take it away for the start here as we talk about Miami's path to the NBA Finals.
I warned everybody, but I was scared of the Heat. But then it's just all of a sudden we're coming back from a 3-0 start. And I'm like, wow. We might actually do it. But then you lay down whatever you just did last night in Game 7. What the crap was that? Oh, I dropped my pencil. I'm like, what is that? You're at home. Game 7. You just did this to the Sixers. Like, Dash, stop playing that small violin.
Yep. I had to experience my pain in the first round. You get to experience yours in round 3, my friend.
You were in the East Finals last year.
Now. They at least got this far.
They shouldn't have gone to 7 games.
They were supposed to go this far, though.
I know.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the thing is about the series, it was definitely a wacky series. I mean, Miami, they have looked strong all postseason. And, now all of a sudden they get to the Eastern Conference Finals. They go up 3-0. Jimmy Butler looks as good as ever. Mm-hmm. And you just think that they're just going to run away with the series. And all of a sudden, Jason Tatum, he just turns on the sparks. And, they shut Butler down and they come all the way back. That Game 6 buzzer beater, that kind of killed me on the inside because that was – I mean, it was definitely skill involved in that, but in my opinion, one of the luckiest game-winning shots that I have seen in the NBA playoffs.
Hey, I've always looked back at championship teams and go, they did not win that whole thing based on skill and good plays alone. They also had a little luck. Unfortunately, to be a winning team, you have to have a little luck, and if you don't have luck, you're probably not going to win at all.
After Game 6 and we won, I just had the gift of a Hawkeye standing in the rain going like, don't do that. Don't give me hope. The whole night I was going like, we're going to come back 3 games. And we're just going to blow it in Game 7.
It was
true. Guess what happened?
I was thinking the opposite. I really thought that Miami had just run out of gas. I mean, usually a lot of these Cinderella runs that we see just happen to just hit a hard wall at some point, and unfortunately that's usually what happens. But I don't know what happened to Boston in Game 7. Nobody could make a shot. It was just bricklaying after bricklaying. Boston couldn't make a shot, and Miami just took advantage of that. It wasn't like Miami was exactly on point on offense either, but they definitely did a lot better than Boston did.
Well, I mean, as much as I don't like to admit the TNT crew was right in any sense of the word, they did say one thing that really stuck, is it appeared that Boston purely just chucked up threes all the time. Rather than trying to see if they could line up a good three-pointer, they just shot him anyway. What
do you think Marcus Smart was doing on Game 6 at the end? Just chucked up a 3.
And to Celtics fans' credit, Jason Tatum did appear to be probably hurt for most of Game 7.
Well, yeah, I think he was hurt right away in the game.
Yeah, returned his ankle, but
I didn't know that.
Well, every time that he made a big move then at the basket throughout the rest of the game, you saw him limping for the next 30 seconds because his ankle still hurt. So, then again, some would say Jimmy Butler turned his ankle too in the fourth quarter, but unless he did like he did back in 2017 and tears his meniscus, it's probably not going to do anything. So.
Congratulations on having the first ever 8th seed in the NBA Finals.
And the Boston Celtics are the ones responsible.
Actually, Cody, that's the second time this has ever happened.
Really?
First time since the 1999 Knicks. But
The
they
Knicks?
could become the first team to ever win it all. We'll have to see what happens, though.
Yeah.
That's not.
Well, I'm just going to put the path to the finals graphic up here just to look at them both. I'll be
And this-
responsible for the Celtics. Or not
But-
Celtics, the Nuggets. That's what I was going to say.
But this just in, though, and I actually did not think about this. Blake Griffin plays for the Celtics.
Yes.
Did not realize that.
I saw him on the bench
You
last
did?
night. I looked over at my dad and I said, wait, Blake Griffin plays for the Celtics? I forgot about that.
Didn't play at all in Game 7,
No.
but
I don't think
nostalgia
Kevin
Played
feels.
at all during the season?
Well, speaking of older people that were once stars, Kevin Love didn't play at all for the Heat last night.
Oh, he's gonna go win another ring. Great.
I'm okay with that.
He's got a
So,
chance to win the second championship. Meanwhile, you got guys like Al Horford for the Celtics. That might have been their last shot.
Yeah.
He's been on the Celtics for a long time.
Well,
Mhm.
many are saying that, Cody, this might have been the last run for who the Celtics are right now, that they might just blow it all up now.
Well, it would make sense, kind of, if Horford might go to a team for a couple more years and then he's done. Smarts and Tatum.
The East is going to look really weird after the season, considering that, the 76ers are probably definitely blowing it up. Celtics might be blowing it up. Bucks might be changing a little bit with the new coach. We'll see what happens now. They just got the Raptors assistant, so we'll see what happens there. But a lot of these powerhouses in the East kind of changing a whole bunch, so it might kind of flip the script in the Eastern Conference for the next couple of years.
Dash, I'll
Hey,
speak
Dash.
from experience about using Toronto's assistants. It tends to work out pretty well, but just don't get any kind of weird players. The Wolves can give you a lesson on that.
Hey,
We already
Dash.
have Grayson Allen, so
Hey, Dash, how much money bet to get Big Greek to the Celtics? How much
The
money?
Greek Freak, yeah.
not enough in this world, Cody. Not enough.
Oh, it's gonna happen, man.
Not until he's
It'll
no
happen.
longer under
You
contract.
can give
with
us
the
every
Bucks.
first-round pick for the next 20 years. No way, Jose.
But just to formally go over kind of the path here, we already mentioned that the Heat just beat the Celtics in 7 games. The Nuggets' path to the finals, they started out by beating my Timberwolves in 5, which wound up being not the worst series of any opponent of the Nuggets, which I just have to laugh. They beat the Suns in 6 games, and then they swept the Lakers, which I will always pride myself that the Wolves at least beat the Nuggets once. Even
was weird, though.
LeBron's Lakers couldn't do it.
It was weird, though. The Lakers, I know you're going to hate me for saying this, but I think they played a better series against them than the Wolves did. I really do. The Wolves got lucky in Game 4 because I think the Nuggets fell asleep at the end of that game. Whereas the Lakers, in every single game, they were right there. They were not blown out in any single one of the games. They kept it close most of the time. They just couldn't get over that little extra hump that was Murray and Jokic in most of those games. And especially in Game 4, when LeBron had a chance to send it to overtime and Murray denied him at the end of that game.
Yeah. And again, the only reason the Wolves won that Game 4 because they actually showed up that night.
Mhm.
I mean, they didn't show up at all in Game 1 and got blown out. To your saying, yeah, that the Lakers didn't get blown out in any of the games. However, that was the only game that the Wolves got blown out in. They were competitive in the other 4, but
I mean, the only team in looking at the Nuggets, you look at their second round against the Suns where they won in 6 games.
and
I mean,
that really
was
didn't
probably
feel like 6.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, there were times where I felt like the Suns maybe had their chances to upend them, but it just ended up not happening. I mean, the Nuggets took the first 2 games, and the Suns tied it back up after those 2 games in Phoenix, which were both pretty close. So you thought, that Game 5 was going to be pretty pivotal, and then the Nuggets took Game 5 and just dominated the Suns in Game 6.
Yeah, and then we'll go over. We already went over one of our teammates here's remorse. We'll go over another now. The Heat beat the Bucks in 5 just to open up the playoffs, and then they beat the Knicks in 6, and then they beat the Celtics in 7 games, but which they might have dismantled the Knicks franchise again because the fans already want numerous players gone in New York.
I mean, I don't know what else they could do, but you look at it, the Heat won in 5, 6, 7. I think that kind of means that they might lose in 7 now in the direction that they're going here.
Either that or they'll win in 8 somehow.
they'll extend the playoff series. They're the NBA final series from our revenue. It'll be better
Jimmy
now.
Jimmy
Instead of
Butler
best of
will
7, it's best of 9.
Yep.
Jimmy Butler will pull out a pocket of add two Uno card and adds 2 games.
Yep. That's 2 games.
Speaking of kind of how long the finals go, let's just show our viewers quick what the schedule looks like. They start with game 1 this week on Thursday, June 1st. That's probably when you're going to see this video. So today or tonight or whenever you're seeing this. And then
Hello.
Cody says hi. They'll play game 4 on Sunday, and then they'll play game 3 next Wednesday, June 7th, and game 4 next Friday, June 9th, and then games 5 through 7 are if necessary. And ABC will be the broadcast partner for this year's finals, as they are every year, I think. But all right, and we got that out of the way. We can talk about other things about them too.
I mean, you look at this year's finals, definitely from a national standpoint, I feel like with NBA fans as a whole, probably a better lineup of a series than last year was between the Warriors and Celtics, 2 of some of the more hated teams by a broader specter of the NBA fan base. But, the Heat, while they have had the run of success in recent years, this is now their 6th finals in the Spoelstra era. They're still a kind of a somewhat likable team right now, kind of a team that came out of nowhere as the 8th seed, and Jimmy Butler having the playoffs of his life. I know you don't like Jimmy Butler, but all the other fan bases that haven't had to deal with Jimmy Butler on their team kind of like watching this team right now. And you got other players like Strias on this team as well that are pretty fun to watch. Hero.
Strauss.
So, Strauss, Hero. So guys like that also make this team fun to watch. And then you got this Nuggets team that, after these last couple of years, I think a lot of fans kind of left this team for dead. It was like, yeah, they're going to be a good team, but they're never going to really get over that hump. Their best chance was in 2020 when they made it to the Western Conference Finals and got smacked by the Lakers.
They remind me a lot of the Spurs.
This year. Yeah, so you figured this year it was just going to be another good but not good enough year. And they got the 1 seed, and the West was kind of weak this year, so you figured they had a good shot at doing so. They got through the Wolves pretty easily. Took a little bit of work, but they got through the Suns. And then they got into that Eastern Conference Finals versus probably the hottest team at the time. It felt like the Lakers. And, you had to wonder, were the Lakers going to down them again for a 3rd time in their franchise's history? But nope. Nuggets were able to get the job done, swept them. And this is, Jokic, a very likable guy in this league, won the MVP before, and I think very deserving of a championship, and this team as well. So I think this team is very deserving of a championship and going to be a very fun team to watch in this finals.
Yeah, I look at this year's finals. I say similar things to Dash. Now, I don't really have as favorable opinions towards Jimmy Butler. I don't hate the guy, but I would rather not.
The memories
the
of
NBA
2017 and
him.
2018
Well,
just won't go
even
away.
That's not always as much anymore. It's just where I've seen him go since he was in Minnesota. It just feels like I'm watching a diva make his way around the league. And it's just...
Well, when he goes to the Lakers, he'll make his full loop around.
Exactly. He's already went to Miami, so he might as well go to L.A.
Ain't that all NBA stars?
It sure seems like it, doesn't it? They all have to take their turn at the NBA's most famous destinations.
Well, I mean, you think about it. I mean, the NFL was kind of the same way for a while. It felt like every good player was flocking over to New England for a long time.
That felt like going to the dark side, though. So,
well, I mean,
come
it's
to the
not
dark
too
side.
far
We have
fetched.
Super Bowl trophies.
And we'll get to another one.
But I mean, the Nuggets are an interesting team. You mentioned a lot, Dash, about how they've kind of been that team that always makes the playoffs. They're always there, but they never quite can get over that whatever hump there is that year. They never can quite achieve that. And as a Wolves fan, I despise playing this team in the regular season every year because Denver is always a very stout team. Again, like I said before, they remind me of the Spurs in their heyday. They're always a team that always brings their A game every night, no matter when it is, regular season, playoffs, exhibition, whatever it is. They always bring their A game. Now, they sometimes come up short in the playoffs, but overall, they're viewed as a very tough team to beat. So I think it'd be cool if the Nuggets won the finals this year. Again, personally, would rather see the Nuggets win the finals. I'll live if the Heat
Be their
do.
first ever.
Yeah, it would. I mean, when I think about the Northwest Division, Dash, correct me if I'm wrong. Have the Jazz even won a finals?
No, they have not.
I didn't think
They've
so.
made it. The closest they ever got was the one that they lost to Michael Jordan.
So
Mhm.
that means that right now in the Northwest Division, wait, the Thunder haven't even won a finals, given
I mean, if you
discounting the
count
Seattle
if
franchise.
I was about to say if you count the Supersonics, but
Technically, those are two different franchises. So the Thunder, as a franchise, have not ever won a finals, and I don't think
nope.
the Blazers have.
And ironically, the team they lost to in their one finals appearance was the Heat.
So that means that if the Nuggets were to win the finals this year, that would be the only the only finals win of any team in the Northwest Division. Considered by many to be the weirdest division in basketball, myself included. I. That's why you said next year, Dash, the East is going to be a lot different. Maybe it's the perfect year for the NBA to do realignment.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Redo the alignment. Move the Wolves
No.
to the East.
No.
So who do you move to the West then if you move the Wolves to the East?
See, I had an answer to this question, and I don't remember what it is. I
Raptors.
Dash and Cody know that there was, at one point a few years back, I made a map of the NBA and redid the whole thing and added in a couple expansion cities and showed how it could work with NFL style divisions and then redrawing the conference line. So
It's a pretty interesting argument. Not as much hard work as my stuff sometimes, but
all right then, Cody. Don't worry. We'll get to your
What
stuff
a
eventually.
show off.
So, Cody, do you want to say anything about these two teams besides the
Well,
heartbreak?
well, it was kind of. I saw something earlier today at work, and it kind of got me to feel a little bit cool to see. I saw on Facebook was a tweet that the head coach of the Heat, Eric Spoelstra.
Eric Spoelstra.
Right, not even close.
but he's coaching like a Spoelstar.
But the post had it was in him in 1995 as the video coordinator for the Miami Heat, and now he's the head coach and has taken the Heat to 6 NBA Finals in the last 13 seasons.
So
That's cool.
Yeah. What, Dash?
So are you saying that you're going to be the head coach of the Boston Celtics in about 30 years? Then?
No.
Is that what you're telling me?
No, because I would drag them through the mud and probably get them worse.
But Mike Budenholzer won a championship with the Bucks, even though he was dragging his feet most of the time. You don't have to be a good coach to win a championship.
I've never coached, but I will say it still kind of hurts. But seeing that kind of has me a little wanting to cheer on the Heat a little bit, even though he's already won a couple. But the Nuggets, I really want them to kind of win it. They've been the top seed in the West for a while this season and have shown they can put up with any competition. They have some off days, but they put up with any competition. But I'm going to be looking forward to not watching any of these games because most of the time I'm too busy.
Of course you are. Well,
but I will see it and I will have fun seeing the final scores and going like, "Ooh, they did it."
Well, all right, let's do our last.
Well, one last thing. It's either a question of will the Nuggets win their first championship in team history, or will the Heat get their first championship since the Major 3 era?
Yeah, will Jimmy Butler get his first title?
Yep.
Yeah.
Instead of Bosh, Wade, and James, is it going to be Butler leading the way this time?
Yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap this up with our last segment here for the NBA. I want to know your guys' predictions, team, and in how many games. Dash, you can go first.
I definitely think I was talking about the Cinderella story almost running out earlier against Boston. And while I think the Heat can absolutely make this a competitive series, I think the Nuggets are just way too strong for them right now. I think Jokic has been playing great all year. So I'm going to go Nuggets in 6. I do think the Heat are going to win a couple of games, but I think the Nuggets are going to end up winning the series and getting their first championship.
Okay. Cody, you want to go next?
I am probably going to say that it's going to be very good games. They're probably going to go to 7, and then Heat win it with the last second 3-pointer.
Okay. All right. I will make my long-awaited prediction. No, not really. All right, my prediction. I'm gonna say Nuggets in 7 games. I can't bring myself to say it's gonna be anything other than a nail biter, because I tried to say that with the Celtics Heat series and that didn't really work. So I gotta go Nuggets in 7 then. So
If it's not a nail biter, the NBA loses money.
yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, that series begins on Thursday of this week on June 1st. So tune in wherever you are. I know some of us will be. So, all right.
Not me.
We're going to move on to the other league that's got a championship series starting this week. The NHL, the Stanley Cup Finals, were just decided as well last night. And we now know that the Vegas Golden Knights will be representing the Western Conference after they beat the Dallas Stars in 6 games. And the Florida Panthers were there awaiting the results as they swept the Carolina Hurricanes in the Eastern Conference Finals. I can tell these guys are gnawing at the bit to start this, so I'm going to put the path to the finals up here for both of them. We can just go over it.
Oh, I'm fine with starting this. I mean, you first start off with a team like the Florida Panthers. They, in the first round of the playoff series, even going into the playoffs, we talked about this. Nobody really expected them to do much. The last team in the East, and they kind of sort of lucked their way in there because Pittsburgh fell apart, and nobody really expected too much out of them. They were facing a Boston team that had the best record in NHL history, and it just seemed like Boston was way too strong for anybody. And they were down 3-1, heading back to Boston for Game 5. It just seemed like it was all over. And then it just seemed like ever since then, something just clicked for this team. They are a brand new team. They look like the most dominating team in all of the NHL heading into these next 2 rounds. And I just, I can't explain it. I mean, guys like Carter Verhaeghe have been getting so much better after that. And playoff Bob, Sergei Bobrovsky, possibly the best postseason out of any goaltender that there has ever been in the NHL. And now I guess you get why they call him playoff Bob.
Definitely. I look back at their path to the finals and think, man, how different this playoffs would have been if Boston had actually won that. I think it was, you said they had a really good chance to win it in game 6 or 5, was it?
It was Game 5. They were tied up and had that breakaway chance right at the end of regulation in the third period, and ended up getting it blocked by Bobrovsky.
Yeah. Just think how different this would have been if they had scored instead and won the series. How different this playoffs would have played out. I mean, instead we'd be talking about
Carolina would have been in the
how
finals
Boston
instead of
got all the way
Boston.
here. Yeah.
No, Carolina would have won. Boston would have lost in the final.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll never know. But I don't know. Definitely very cool. On the Vegas side of things, their path to the finals, I feel like it it was a lot more expected, or at least could have been a little bit more predicted. They pretty much handled the Jets in 5 games. There really wasn't much of a battle there, especially after Game 1, because Game 1, Winnipeg won Game 1, and then the Knights won the other 4 to win the series. And then they faced Edmonton, which included 3 of the top point getters in the playoffs up to that point, and they still beat them in 6 games. So didn't really have much there. Edmonton always runs out of gas, it seems, at some point in the playoffs. And then Dallas, they had their Peter DeBoer run this year, and wound up somehow forcing games 5 and 6 after winning games 4 and 5, after they were pretty much dead to rights, down 3-0. And then Vegas won in game 6 to seal it. So, Cody, I haven't heard from you yet. You want to say something about either of these two teams' path to the finals?
The one thing I would say, it was like, for me, I was thinking about it. It was almost 3-0 comeback in both of these, right? Or am I wrong? Okay, no,
Well, yeah,
What?
Vegas. I mean, it felt like they ran out of gas against Dallas.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right, because Dallas came back, won those 2 games, the surprise, but then Knights kind of sealed the deal up in Game 6, where the Stars looked like they did not show up at all, with 6-0 win up for the Vegas Knights.
Yeah.
It
Well,
wasn't the Dallas Stars that showed up that night. It was their AHL affiliate, the Texas Stars, that showed up that night.
you love to talk about that. I don't know. I don't know. You guys aren't thinking the same thing as me, but I was grinning ear to ear, seeing how that game last night played out. So finally came to an end. Yes.
The one series
I
that did surprise me, though, was the Golden Knights and Oilers. I was a little surprised that the Oilers couldn't beat the Golden Knights, but like you mentioned, they seem to do this every year.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would
Go ahead, Cody.
if you want to. I was going to talk about the series, so you can go ahead.
Oh, that's what I was going to talk about too. Go right ahead.
Oh, all right, never mind then. The one that surprised me was just Carolina getting swept, like in these finals. Like I really thought Carolina was going to show up in some of these games, which they did. They just can't win an F in overtime, apparently, at
Apparently
all.
not.
Can't win in overtime, can't win on the road, and can't win a Eastern Conference Finals game.
It was just Dash. How late did you stay up to watch that first overtime?
I only stayed up till the end of the third overtime. I didn't even get to stay up till for the whole thing. But it's just it did have this a little bit of a feeling like whoever loses this game one is going to lose this series because there's so much energy given up in the first game to start out, and you just get so defeated when you lose a game like that, especially the first game of the entire series.
Yeah. I don't know. Carolina's another team that we talked in our last episode about the finals and stuff that Carolina felt like this was probably their last chance to get a cup in their window. We felt like after this year it was probably going to start to go downwards. So you have to wonder if just with all that, maybe did they lose? Did they just run out of gas once they got to the Eastern Conference Finals? I mean, it certainly feels like it. So
I don't know. It was weird because I mean I talked about the Lakers making it close in their sweep. Carolina did everything they could to win this series. I mean that game one, 4 overtime loss, that was rough. Game two went to overtime at home as well. Unfortunately, lost that one too. You lose 2 straight overtime games at home. That is hard to come back from. And then they made game three really close. It was just that playoff Bob again, was just being Sergei Bobrovsky this playoffs and just stopping everything in its tracks and lose a hard fought 1-0 game. And then the coup de grace, the game four, where they made it closer. It looked like it was heading to overtime again. And then with 4 seconds left, the Panthers score and win the series. So that is about as tough of as close of a sweep as you could ask for.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Carolina's no team to like joke about. They're usually a very good hockey team. You guys are correct saying like some of their players are like they're getting close to the end of their window. It's just kind of sad to see that it was a sweep. Like, and you said they played their hearts out, but they just couldn't do it at the end.
And normally a playoff team that gets swept by the last wild card team like this, normally, this is a team that you point and laugh at because it's like, how do you get swept by a wild card team like this? But I can't. Like I said, they played with everything that they could. It's just that the Panthers, I think, were just on another level ever since that game 5 against Boston. They have just been on a different atmosphere than anybody else.
Yeah, you're here for a reason at this point. You're not here purely based on luck at this point. You have some, but you're not purely based on luck right now.
But unfortunately, Carolina had none of it in this round
Yep.
of the playoffs.
Yep. Yeah, they had no luck. No luck. They lost it all. So let's quickly go over here the schedule for the Stanley Cup Finals. They're going to begin this coming Saturday, June 3rd. They'll continue with Game 2 on Monday, June 5th. And then Game 3 is on Thursday, June 8th, with Game 4 next Saturday, June 10th. And then Games 5 through 7 are, if necessary, the following week. All right, open mic. Anything you guys want to talk about for the Stanley Cup Finals?
I think this should be a fun Stanley Cup Finals. I mean, considering right off the bat, the first note is neither of these teams has ever won a cup before. Somebody
Yeah.
is winning a cup for the first time in their team's history, and that is already something that's got me excited. For a team like the Florida Panthers, who, since 1996, only just their, a few years into their team becoming a franchise, they made it all the way to the finals and lost. But, they haven't made it far into the playoffs ever since then. They didn't even win a series ever since then. And then to finally make it all the way back to the finals this year after, I thought last year was going to be their best chance, and they got beat in the second round. Now they made it all the way to the finals as the second wild card. They're definitely a fun team to watch. And then Vegas trying to avenge, a few years of pretty much rough playoffs. And I think they did the right thing this year. It's not like your typical Vegas where everybody kind of loathes them because they're bragging and boasting about what they're doing and
Yeah.
just being like the best. They just kind of lay low this year. They hired Bruce Cassidy, kind of lay low, a solid all around team, made some good moves, got Jack Eichel. I'd be excited if Eichel wins the Stanley Cup Finals after all of his
Yeah.
years in Buffalo.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of things you said, Dash. As somewhat of a hockey fan myself, I used to not really like Vegas at all, and they're still not one of my favorite teams, but I don't really dislike them much anymore. They're much more likable. Like you said, they're not too crass, and they don't brag about where they're at, and they don't brag about what they have. They're a hockey team now. As weird as that sounds, I mean, I think that was the biggest irk of a lot of people years ago, or a few years ago. It just didn't feel like the Golden Knights were a real hockey team. It felt like they were an all-star team just plucked from the NHL, and that didn't really feel fair. Versus now, Vegas is just as much of a hockey team as the Wild or the Blackhawks or the Penguins. They're a hockey team now.
Flames.
Yeah, yeah, they're a hockey team now. So on that note, I don't mind seeing another team win a cup. I mean, like you said, neither of them have won one. Now the interesting thing with Vegas would be, I wonder if that would be the soonest a franchise has ever won a Stanley Cup. I don't know for sure. I'd have to look that up, but that'd be cool to know if they would be basically the first or the soonest franchise to ever win their first cup.
I mean, if you technically, it's around the same time that the Hurricanes won when they moved to Carolina. Technically, it's a little different because they were technically a franchise before they moved to Carolina
Right.
when they were up in Quebec City. But I mean, they won a Stanley Cup only like a few years after moving to Carolina. And same thing with the Dallas Stars. They only won a cup a few years after moving from Minnesota. So we've had situations
Yeah.
like that before. Just never a team fresh from the blue winning a cup ever. So
Hmm.
let's see what happens there.
Yeah. Cody, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say I would probably watch the NHL finals, but before any of the NBA finals this year, because both of these teams have shown that they're very good teams. They're ready to play, and it's going to be interesting to see who actually wins and gets their first franchise Stanley Cup Finals and gets their name etched on the trophy.
Yeah.
No, Nate. Oh, yeah, more Cody.
No, that was it.
Okay. No, Nate, I want to ask you something because this is one question I want to get to before we get to our predictions. So you talked a little bit about the expansion draft and how it seems like Vegas got themselves an all-star team. And this seems to be a common problem right now in the NHL, kind of similar to how in college sports the transfer portal has become way too lenient.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, like you got back to the early '90s with the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Ottawa Senators, they got table scraps from other teams. They could get nothing, and they were horrible for years. Whereas then you got more recent teams like the Lightning and even the Kraken. Now you can definitely tell they're just good right off the bat because of how easy it is to get good players with this expansion draft. Do you think there's some way they could change it to be somewhere in the middle where it's not like they don't get anything, but at the same time they don't get all-star caliber talent?
It's been a little bit since I've looked at this topic, but I will say one of the biggest things I heard coming out of both of those expansion drafts is fans were surprised at how little amount of players teams could protect. They were surprised because that was something that I think was the biggest gripe among fans. Given that these teams had so many good players, is because the really good teams in the NHL could only protect very very few of their players. So of course there's going to end up being really good players available because they can only protect like, oh, I want to say like two lines. It was something weird like that. So I think if the NHL made it so that they could protect more players, I think fans would have been more okay with it. And I don't think then that the Knights and the Kraken would be as good as they are. Now, the weird thing between the two is the Knights were really good in their first couple of years in the league. Like they I don't think they really had a down year yet. They even missed the playoffs any year?
They they only missed the playoffs last year, and that was just barely because they collapsed at the end of the year.
That's right. Yeah. But yeah, their first couple of years in the league were dynamite. Like they were awesome. They went down in history as probably one of the best, if not the best expansion team in any realm of the sports world.
I mean, definitely the best NHL expansion team since the St. Louis Blues, who made it to the finals in their first 2 years.
Yeah. So versus the Kraken, I feel like people did not view them as harshly because their first year they sucked. Like they were not good at all. And then this year, it's not like they were out of this world great. They were good enough to make it as a wild card team. And again, they're still not at any NHL fans' ire is because they still only managed. They beat Colorado, which I think a lot of people were hoping that Colorado would win a cup again this year because they just won it last year. We didn't want to repeat at the Lightning, so people were happy they were gone, and then the Kraken bowed out in the second round. So I still not on anybody's ire or bad spot on the radar. So besides, Seattle's got a team now. I find it interesting they have an NHL team before they have the Supersonics back, but that's probably a topic that Seattle fans probably don't want me to pick. But
Will it still be the Supersonics?
that's a good question, and I'll answer right now since we are in the NHL. But I think it will be. I think it will be the Supersonics, or at least some variation of that brand, because the NBA has said multiple times they are not protecting. They are protecting that brand, but not against Seattle. They're protecting it for Seattle in case they want to use it as a future expansion team.
Knowing sports leagues these days, they're gonna bring an NBA team back to Seattle, but they're gonna call them something stupid like the Seattle Generals or something.
Yeah.
They won't call them the Supersonics. Just be the most bland, boring name ever that doesn't even relate to
Well,
their own team.
all right. Let's get that out of the way, and then we can talk about other stuff. Dash, you want to go first?
This is a weird one for me. This one isn't as clear cut and dry for me as the NBA Finals prediction, in my opinion, because I really don't know who is going to win this series. I mean, you have so much upside with the Panthers right now. They look like they are on fire at this moment. They only lost one of their last 9 playoff games, right? Or actually, one of their last 12 playoff games. So they're just rolling through it right now, and it is just hard to beat them right now. But at the same time, there's a reason the Vegas got here too. They have been consistently strong all year, and I mean, other than those 2 games that they had against Dallas, they've looked pretty strong this playoffs as well. So, right now, I do think though that Florida is on so much of a roll right now. I think they keep it going for these playoffs, and I'm gonna say they actually convincingly win in 5. I'm going to say so. Give me the Panthers in 5.
Okay. Cody, you want to give some input?
I do think it's going to be a very close series. I don't think either team is going to pretty much seal the deal. I think it's going to 7 games like usual. NHL needs money. But other than that, I'm going to say that the Florida Panthers will have another last-second goal to win the whole series, and Florida and Miami fans both are going to be celebrating as 2 of their teams have won the big finals.
Yeah. All right. Well, mine will be slightly different than both of you. I am actually going to predict Vegas wins at 6 games. I always, of course, am like you guys. I want the Cinderella to win, and it's not that I don't want Vegas to win. It's just I think to an extent it's inevitable looking at what's happened, what's coming. We like to forget that a lot of these stories don't end well, which sucks. And we obviously remember all the ones that end really well, that are so cool, and you think of them years later. But you're going to forget the ones that don't end well. And I unfortunately think this is one of the ones we're going to forget. Vegas is going to win their first cup in 6 games. And the only reason it's going to be 6 games is because Florida is going to wind up winning Game 5 to force a Game 6. So that's that. Any final thoughts before we move on to just general topics here?
Now, what's general?
Well,
Talking NASCAR, baseball.
Well, I was actually going to mention some overarching things on both of the leagues we just talked about. You know, looking at kind of how these leagues shake up now that we've gotten to the finals now. Because obviously, in both leagues, 30 teams are done. So, I don't know. I look back at the NBA and go, thinking about next year, I feel there's just about any team can make the NBA Finals in the top half of each conference. I don't think there's a reason I could say they won't, because it doesn't seem like, because we went into the playoffs thinking in the NBA that the West was probably a very weak conference, but then we look at how the East played out, and I don't feel much better about the East. So I feel like these conferences are just so wide open. I feel like anybody can win them next year, unless, of course, the teams that won them this year do that. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's not exactly an expert topic for me.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, the NHL is a little different in my perspective. I feel like both the Eastern and Western Conference are probably fairly strong on both sides. Obviously, the NHL playoffs did have some upsets this year, but it didn't feel like the whole thing was an upset. Obviously, besides the Florida Panthers making the Stanley Cup Finals, but to your point, Dash, after they got through the Bruins, it does not feel like they are the last wild card in the East. It feels like they are a top 2 seed.
I mean, I think it's definitely easier to be the last team in the NHL and be successful than it is in the NBA. Granted,
Yes.
It's happened only around the same amount of times, though, because it's only happened 2 other times in the NHL, at least in the modern playoff format, and the most recent time being Nashville back in 2017.
Yeah. Well, I think the difference, though, between the two is the NHL's modern playoff format's only been in place for 15 years, maybe less. I think more like 12, something like that. It's only been in the 21st century that this format has been in place. They had a different one because back when the Wild first joined, it was a different playoff format. They had a lot fewer teams. So, but yeah, I see what you're saying. Cody, you got any comment on either of the 2 leagues, or do you want to move to something else?
No, I'm good.
I mean, the only other I did remember the other team. It was the 2004 or 2006 Oilers. That was the other team that was an 8th seed or the last wildcard team and made it all the way to the finals.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you guys want to discuss here before we sign off?
Yeah, the Twins are losing to the Astros right now.
Yeah, I saw that.
Why?
We need to do we need to do a baseball video soon. You guys should watch out for a baseball video. We're gonna do one soon enough.
Man, we beat the Yankees.
That was a while ago, Cody.
I know,
No,
but just hopefully we don't see him in the playoffs.
Don't give us hope.
Cody.
Yeah.
It's not October yet, buddy.
Uh-huh.
If you guys can beat him in October, then I'll be impressed.
I will give the Twins credit, though. They did clinch the series win over the Yankees for the first time since 2004, I think.
And hey, we're the only ones with a winning record in the Central.
That's not an accomplishment.
That's not a good thing.
I was going to say the same thing. That ain't an accomplishment.
No.
You're the best on top of the garbage pile. That's all that is.
I would want to talk
Same
about
thing with
them,
us.
but I'm sure we should leave the ranting on both of our favorite teams in baseball for another time. Well, if you guys don't got anything else, that'll do it for us today. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.